My name is Dr. Hassan Malik, and I was a respected Islamic scholar who came to the United States in my 40s. For decades, I believed I had found my calling and purpose. But one day, everything I thought I knew about faith, family, and life itself was turned completely upside down. To help you understand my story, I need to take you back to that pivotal year. It was the year I turned 64 when the doctors delivered devastating news. I had been diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. They told me my time was severely limited, and the treatments offered only a slim chance of extending my life. I viewed this illness as a divine test, much like the trials faced by the prophet Abraham when he was commanded to sacrifice his son. I held firmly to my faith through every chemotherapy session, whispering prayers as the medication flowed through my veins. Each night as I lay in bed, I prayed with all my heart, "If I should die tonight, O Allah, let me meet you in peace." But my prayers were answered in a way I never could have anticipated. One evening, after returning home from a particularly difficult chemotherapy session, I felt a sharp tightness in my chest. At first, I dismissed it as a muscle cramp, but the discomfort quickly became unbearable. Soon I could barely breathe. As darkness closed in around me, I saw a flurry of activity, nurses and doctors shouting, their hands pressing on my chest, desperately trying to revive me. I was watching it all from above. Yes, from above. My body lay motionless on the hospital bed, but somehow I was still there, observing everything. It felt completely surreal. Shouldn't my consciousness have ceased when my heart stopped? Yet I was fully aware and alert. Is this death? I wondered. Am I about to meet Allah? Suddenly, I noticed a brilliant light in the distance. It was warm, inviting, and filled with an unexplainable peace. As I moved toward it, familiar sounds surrounded me. My mother's lullabies, the evening prayers my father used to recite, echoes of verses from the Quran, all converging in that moment. It felt like my entire life was unfolding before me. As I entered the light, I thought, this is it. This must be paradise. The peace I felt was beyond anything I had ever experienced. Tears streamed down my face, not from pain, but from pure joy. Praise be to Allah who has brought me here, I whispered, but my sense of peace didn't last. Suddenly, the lush surroundings began to wither. The trees' leaves turned black, the fruit shriveled, and a stench of decay filled the air. Darkness engulfed everything. The cries of men, women, and children echoed in the void. Among the voices, one cry pierced my soul. It was my mother's. "Have mercy! Have mercy!" she screamed. The anguish in her voice tore at my heart. The darkness grew heavier, smothering me. I was trapped in a void, unable to discern up from down. Then a deep, resonant voice broke the silence. Unlike any voice I had ever heard. "Hassan, everything will now be revealed." In the distance, I saw a throne, high and imposing. Someone sat upon it, and as I approached, my knees gave out. It was a figure I recognized immediately, the Prophet Muhammad. But something was terribly wrong. His hands were bound in chains, and his face was filled with profound sorrow. This can't be real, I thought. Why is he here? Why is he bound? The Prophet's eyes met mine, and tears streamed down his face. The sight of his sorrow broke something inside me. This must be a mistake. I am a scholar. I have dedicated my life to serving Allah. I screamed, but my voice was swallowed by the void. A voice echoed around the throne, deep and ancient. "The time has come for you to know the truth, Hassan." Before I could respond, a book appeared, falling from the sky. It crashed to the ground, sending tremors through the darkness. I recognized it instantly. It was the Quran. The pages began to turn on their own, as if guided by an unseen hand. The voice spoke again. "Who is Allah, Hassan? Have you ever truly asked yourself that question?" The question struck me like lightning. What kind of question was that? I thought Allah was the creator of all things, the most merciful, the most compassionate. But the voice persisted. "How do you know he is the creator? Have you ever truly thought about it?" Panic set in. I had never questioned Allah's nature. Before, I had always accepted it as truth, passed down through generations. Images began to rise from the pages of the Quran. Scenes from history unfolded before me. I saw the Kaaba surrounded by idols. People worshipped with incense and offerings, invoking names like Al-Lat and Al-Uzza. This is the Kaaba before Islam. The voice said, "Where was Allah among these gods?" The realization hit me like a wave. Before Islam, the Arabs believed in Allah as one God among many. My mind reeled as the voice continued to question the origins of my faith. The next vision transported me to an ancient land. People worshipped a towering idol, offering sacrifices. Inscribed on the idol was a name I recognized, Baal. Beneath it, in a script resembling Arabic, was another name, El. The voice whispered, "Baal, El, Allah. Have you ever thought about their connection?" I fell to my knees, clutching my head. The weight of these revelations was too much to bear. "Have I been deceived?" I whispered. The next thing I knew, I was gasping for air. My eyes fluttered open, and the bright lights of the hospital room blinded me. Nurses surrounded me, their faces filled with relief. "You're back," one of them said. But I wasn't the same. The images and questions haunted me. My faith, my beliefs, everything I had built my life on was now in doubt. Days turned into weeks, and I struggled to process what I had seen. The doubts gnawed at me, leaving me restless. At times, I would stare out the window, watching the world go by, wondering if anyone else had ever felt the way I did. My wife, Layla, noticed my turmoil. She would sit beside me, trying to comfort me, but the words caught in my throat. How could I explain to her what I had seen? One night, unable to sleep, I walked out into the garden. The cool night air brushed against my face, and the stars twinkled above. As I stood there beneath the vast expanse of stars, memories of my life as a scholar came flooding back. I remembered the first time I taught at our local Islamic center, my hands trembling as I read from the Quran. The community had such faith in me, looking to me for guidance, for answers. Now I had none to give. I thought about my grandfather, also a scholar, who had taught me to recite the Quran when I was just 7 years old. His weathered hands would guide mine across the pages as we sat in his study, the scent of cardamom, tea filling the air. "Remember, Hassan," he would say, "Allah's words are perfect." But now those same words felt heavy with questions I had never dared to ask before. The garden's roses, carefully tended by my wife, reminded me of our life back. In Syria, we had a similar garden there, where our children would play after evening prayers. The memory of their laughter, mixed with the call to prayer echoing across the neighborhood, brought tears to my eyes. What would they think if they knew their father, their teacher, was questioning everything? I remembered the day we decided to leave Syria. The civil war had made life unbearable, and several religious leaders had already been targeted. Layla and I packed what we could carry, said goodbye to our extended family, and boarded a plane to America. The journey was terrifying, but we believed Allah had a plan for us. In America, we built a new life. Our Islamic center became a sanctuary for other Muslim immigrants, seeking not just a place to pray, but a community to belong to. I counseled countless families through their struggles with assimilation, always pointing them back to their faith as an anchor. The irony of my current situation wasn't lost on me. My thoughts drifted to the young people in our community who had come to me with their doubts. How many times had I dismissed their questions, telling them that faith requires submission, not understanding? I remembered Nadia, a bright young woman who stopped coming to the center after her questions about women's roles in Islam were met with stern disapproval. Had I failed her by not acknowledging her struggles? The cancer diagnosis had initially strengthened my faith. I saw it as an opportunity to demonstrate unwavering trust in Allah's will. The community rallied around me, bringing food to Layla, organizing prayer circles, and even raising money for my treatment. Their love and support made my current crisis of faith feel like a betrayal. One particular memory haunted me, a conversation with my oldest son, Omar, just before my near-death experience. He had asked me why Allah would allow suffering if he was truly merciful. I had given him the standard response about divine wisdom and the temporary nature of worldly pain. Now, standing in the garden, I wondered if my son's questions had been more honest than my answers. The voice from my vision continued to echo in my mind. How do you know he is the creator? The question led me down paths I had never explored. I began to research the pre-Islamic period, the Jahiliyyah, which we had always dismissed as the age of ignorance. But what if there was more to the story? I found myself secretly reading about ancient Semitic religions, the development of monotheism, and the historical context of the Quran's revelation. Each discovery felt like another crack in the foundation of my faith. Yet somehow I couldn't stop seeking answers. My wife noticed these changes in me. Layla, who had always been my strength, watched with growing concern as I spent hours in my study, surrounded by books that would have been forbidden in our previous life. She would bring me tea, her hand lingering on my shoulder, silently asking questions she was afraid to voice. The community began to whisper. Why wasn't the scholar leading prayers anymore? Why did he look so troubled? Some blamed it on the cancer treatments, while others suggested the Americans had somehow corrupted me. If they only knew the real battle raging inside my soul. I started having long conversations with Dr. Sarah Thompson, my oncologist. She was a scientist who had seen countless patients face their mortality, and something about her quiet confidence drew me in. One day, she shared her own story of growing up in a strict religious household and finding her way to a different kind of faith, one that embraced questions rather than feared them. The sleepless nights became more frequent. I would pace the garden, remembering the faces of all the people who had trusted me to guide them. Had I led them astray? The weight of this responsibility crushed me. Sometimes, in the pre-dawn hours, I would find myself performing wudu out of habit, preparing for far prayer, only to stop midway, overwhelmed by doubt. My youngest daughter, Yasmin, caught me crying one morning. She had inherited my contemplative nature and sat with me in silence for a long time. Finally, she asked, "Baba, is it okay to change what you believe if you find out something new?" The wisdom in her innocent question startled me. The cancer treatments continued, each session giving me time to reflect. The hospital chapel became my refuge, not for prayer, but for the silence it offered. Sometimes I would sit there for hours, watching people of different faiths come and go, each finding comfort in their own way of connecting with the divine. I began to notice things I had overlooked before. The kindness of the Christian nurses who cared for me without trying to convert me, the peace on the face of a Buddhist patient who meditated despite his pain, the Jewish doctor who worked tirelessly on Saturdays to help her patients, finding her own way to honor her faith's principles. One day, a young Muslim resident recognized me from the Islamic Center. The shame I felt as he greeted me with "Assalamu alaikum" in the chapel was overwhelming. But instead of judgment, he shared his own struggles with faith and medicine. How? He tried to reconcile modern science with traditional beliefs. His honesty was refreshing, and for the first time, I felt less alone in my questioning. The visions from my near-death experience became clearer as I allowed myself to examine them. The bound prophet, the ancient voice, the withering paradise. Were these symbols of the constraints I had placed on my own understanding of God? The questions that had terrified me began to feel like stepping stones toward a larger truth. For the first time in weeks, I found a small sense of peace. In the stillness of the night, as I stood there, I whispered a prayer, not to the Allah I had known, but to the Creator, whoever he might be. "If you are real, show me the truth," I said, my voice trembling. The next day, a chaplain named Pastor Michael visited me. He wore a simple collar and carried a worn Bible. At first, I was hesitant to speak with him, but his calm presence eased my fears. "You saw something, didn't you?" he asked gently. I nodded. For the first time, I shared my experience. Tears streamed down my face as I recounted the throne, the chains, and the voice. Pastor Michael listened without judgment. "What about Jesus?" he asked. The question caught me off guard. Jesus, he wasn't part of what I saw, but why? Pastor Michael opened the Bible and read, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." John 14 verse 6. The words pierced my heart. Could Jesus be the answer I had been searching for? Over the following weeks, I wrestled with these questions. My family noticed the change in me, and my community began to distance themselves. But I couldn't turn back. One morning, I walked into Pastor Michael's church. "I want to know the truth," I said. He smiled warmly. "Jesus has been waiting for you, Hassan." That day, I made the decision to follow Jesus. As the water of baptism poured over me, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The chains of doubt and fear were gone. For the first time, I felt truly free. I began to notice small, subtle changes in myself. My heart, once weighed down by the expectations of my role as a scholar, now felt light. I found myself reading the Bible for hours, discovering stories and teachings that resonated deeply. The words of Jesus were filled with compassion and truth. One night, as I read the Sermon on the Mount, tears welled up in my eyes. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. I had spent so much of my life focused on rituals and appearances, but now I was beginning to understand what it meant to seek God with my whole heart. Today, I wake up each morning with a sense of joy I never knew before. The cancer that once ravaged my body has vanished, leaving the doctors baffled. But I know who healed me. Every day, I open the Bible and pray, thanking Jesus for saving me. My journey hasn't been easy, but I have found a peace that surpasses understanding. I am no longer a scholar bound by tradition. I am simply a man who has been transformed by the grace of God. As I share my story, my hope is that others who are searching for the truth will find it. I am the way, the truth, and the life. These words have become my anchor, and they can be yours too.